Hey everybody, James Ward here, live at NRB2025, TLN Media. Thanks so much for joining me again for Cultural Conversations Podcast, Meeting Cultural Challenges with Biblical Solutions. And I'm so excited. I got my friend, my brother, Delano Squires, the Delano Squires here, fellow research fellow at the Heritage Foundation in DC. What I believe who I believe is one of the brightest minds in our generation. I really believe
Wow.
that. Delano, thanks for being with me, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for everything that you do, man. You
Absolutely.
well?
Yes, no complaints.
Very nice.
Nobody
Yeah.
will listen anyway. So
I hear you, man. So real quick, man, what do you think is the value, even when we get together at NRB like this, these kinds of conventions, Christian communication, the fight for morals and values, and the power of media, man? What are some of your takeaways and your thoughts about the importance of these kind of gatherings?
well, I think part of the value is fortifying one another, encouraging one another, obviously edifying the body, because we can't expect the culture to hold to more of a biblical standard than we do.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is understanding, right? Rallying the troops, making sure we're all singing from the same song sheet,
Yeah.
so that we can be more effective when we go outside in the culture and say, "Thus saith the Lord."
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I really appreciate about your voice is you're able to take spiritual principles and truths, and I like to say to translate them into strong morals and ethics. And for
Right.
folks that don't understand, I distinguish between morals and ethics, because morals have to do with how I govern myself, but
Right.
ethics really govern our relationship with each other and,
Right.
and our relationship within a community, man. So what would you say in terms of the value of controlling the narrative and defining morals and ethics in our society and our culture right now?
Critically important, because one of the things that the enemy wants to do is control terms and territory.
Yeah.
He wants control of the dictionary. He wants control of our institutions. So part of what I see as my role as a Christian is to advocate God's truth in a way that the broader sort of world, the watching world, can understand it. And I think
Yeah.
one of the reasons we are where we are today is because we've abandoned the notion of public morality.
Yeah.
Right. When I read works from Christian authors, or even people who may have been religious, but they didn't necessarily identify with one particular denomination from 100 years ago, you could see that the values, the virtues of temperance, of honesty, of hard work, were sort of shot through everything that they said and they thought. So one of the beauties of Christianity is that even for people who don't necessarily hold to all the key doctrines, if the culture is Christianized,
Yeah.
everyone who is in the culture will benefit, sort of in a downstream sort of sense.
Yep.
Because I'm sure you're familiar with the Breitbart doctrine, right, from Andrew Breitbart, right?
Yep.
That politics is downstream from culture, but I would argue that culture is downstream from religion.
Yeah.
So the things that we believe, the things
Couldn't
that we
agree
say
more.
that we believe, are ultimately going to have an impact
Yep.
on how we live our lives.
Couldn't agree more, man. Could you give some clarity to a Christianized culture versus America being a Christian state? I think there's some clarity there that we're not talking about mandated or forced religion,
Right.
but every nation has a moral and an ethical code that defines the way of life. And so sometimes folks kind of push back with a complete misunderstanding of
Right.
separating church and state, man. But come on, the nature of righteousness, and again, some of those values that you communicated that start even in the home. What would you say in terms of just the importance of those values being restored, even within the home right now?
I mean, we need them. Every institution is going to have its values shaped by someone
Yeah.
or something, right? I would not move to Saudi Arabia and demand that they celebrate Christmas in the public square,
right.
because that's just not part of their value set. So while I do think it's important for Christians to run for office, to have and hold seats of authority in sort of the public sphere, I think that's a good thing. To your point, you can't force religious conversion, but what you can do is say the imprint of our culture,
Yeah.
right? The driving force of our culture is going to be a biblical version of Christianity.
Yeah.
Because even people on the left will say, oh, we believe in Christianity, but theirs is the Christianity that rejects Genesis 1:27. It
That's
says,
right.
no, you can be
Yeah.
whatever gender you say you are.
Yeah.
Theirs is the Christianity that consigns millions, hundreds of thousands, if
Yeah.
not millions of babies to the evil of abortion every year.
Yeah.
But I believe that believers, genuine believers, can and should hold public office, but we can also do things, and particularly the church has a role in catechizing the culture,
Yeah.
in affirming God's truth as it relates to the distinctions between male and female as it relates to the institution of marriage and the importance of family. And I think after years or decades of doing that, you will see, a culture where a young child, even if he doesn't know an older woman, will say, in our neighborhood, we walk old ladies across the street.
That's right,
We don't
man.
we don't rob from them.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you start to see the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah. I whenever I hear you talk and read your writings, we're talking about biblical Christianity, not necessarily Christianizing any political side of the aisle. And the
Right.
reason I say that, because many of the progressive, policies and ideologies is it comes from, Galatians chapter 1, verse 6, verse 7, when Paul talks about you turn to another gospel.
Right.
A different gospel. Now, gospel generically means good news, but it's another kind of good news that's really not based upon the true gospel of Jesus Christ. So, man, what are you saying? Just right. You talked about the dictionary. What do you see in terms of just the, I would say, the distortion and really the manipulation of ideologies and terms that sound good,
Right.
but if they're not based upon absolute biblical truth, they absolutely become something that's really a cancer to our society.
Oh, absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. And I think it's important. I'll start here by saying sometimes you'll hear Christians on one side of the other, typically on the center left. They'll say, "Oh, Jesus wasn't right wing or left wing; he was
Right.
in the middle." I think that's a complete misunderstanding of sort of how you understand the Christian faith in a political world.
Yeah.
The word is straight.
Yeah.
Now, it could be straight on the right side or straight on the left side, but it's always straight. So I caution against assuming that one political party is the one that's sort of living out sort of
true.
biblical truths.
Yeah.
But to your point, there are people who will tell you that it's compassionate, and kind, and loving and affirming to agree with a child who says, I'm born in the wrong body, and because of that,
Yeah.
I need to be put on puberty blockers. I need to get a double mastectomy. I need to get a quote-unquote gender-affirming hysterectomy
Right.
in
Yeah.
order for me to feel like I'm in the right body, and in order for me not
What
to
a
do
tragedy.
harm to myself.
Yeah.
So I think we need to disabuse ourselves of the notion that we can ever beat God in loving the people that he created in
Yep.
his image.
Yep.
And that is one thing that I think the church should play a role, play a leading role in that,
Yeah.
because politicians, regardless of what side they're on,
Right.
tend to think in election cycles,
They do.
whereas the Bible is
Yep.
written from the perspective of eternity.
Right. They do. Yeah. So one of the things again is we have so much synergy around, man. You're a dad, strong dad, family first. We're family first guys, and this notion of even a lot of the plight of the black community. You know what,
Yeah.
man? Straight up, we can solve that.
Right.
It doesn't take a long time to solve that at all, man. What would you say right now to fathers in particular concerning the home in some of the few minutes that we have remaining here?
I think fathers need to know and understand the role that they play.
Husbands and fathers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See, but this is the thing. We're so in synergy, and particularly with God's word,
yeah.
that when we say father, the husband is assumed.
That's right.
But
It's
for the
assumed.
rest of the culture, that's not the case.
Right.
And a lot of times, either both left and right, people disembody the family where they'll promote responsible fatherhood
Yep.
and say nothing about husbandhood. So you're right. I believe every child deserves and has a right to a loving, low conflict home being raised by their married mom and dad.
Yeah.
I think the social science is clear. That structure is what allows kids to thrive most. And to your point, I think particularly in the issues in the black community, almost all of them stem from breakdown in the family.
Yeah.
And over the course of decades, we have seen marriage deformed. We've seen God defied.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen man displaced. We've
on.
seen woman deceived.
Yeah.
We've seen children destroyed.
Yeah.
And we've
Wow.
seen ultimately the home divided.
Yep.
But I do believe that we can and we will, with God's help, bring healing to the home.
Yeah, so good, man. I'm straight up in communicating that the purpose of my children is so much more important to me than the pain of my ancestors. Yeah, my
That's
ancestors had some pain, but I cannot allow my children's purpose to be thwarted
Yes.
because I'm focused on the pain of my
Right.
ancestors. Man, I think
Absolutely.
my ancestors would have a problem with me
Absolutely.
looking in the rearview mirror,
Absolutely.
rehearsing pain and victimization and legitimate injustice, but to the point that it is a detriment to the purpose of our children. So, man,
Right.
last thing, man, what do we need to do concerning our children and grandchildren? Thinking multi-generationally, the
Absolutely.
multi-generational family, man. What would you say in terms of the importance of that?
I love the way you put that just now, right? I think about it this way: you honor the past, you live in the present, you build for the future.
That's it.
So I think every good father, one, has to understand that he's going to leave an inheritance to his children. Now the question is whether that is going to be one of wealth and prosperity. And I'm not just talking about riches,
Right.
or whether he's going to saddle them with debt
Yep.
and despair. So I'm with you. I believe in thinking intergenerationally, multi-generationally.
Yep.
And that even can have an impact on how people decide to live their lives. It might be, no, I don't want to move across the country for college or for a job because I want my children to grow up close to their grandparents.
Yeah.
So that the
Huge,
young
man.
can learn from the old,
Yeah.
and the old can be energized by the young.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
need to start thinking
Huge.
intergenerationally.
Good deal, man. So, man, just tell folks, where can they find out more about Delano Squires? Again, I believe one of the brightest minds in our generation, man. I'm thankful for you, man. I'm thankful for the surgical precision and the boldness that you're able to address issues and to rightly divide truth, man. So what can folks
appreciate that.
find out? Where can they find out more about the Blaze, what you're doing at Heritage?
Easiest way to keep track of me is I'm on Twitter, aka X, at Delano Squires, Delano Squires.
Yep.
As you said, I write a weekly column at the Blaze.
Yep.
So just Blaze Media and put in my name, Delano Squires.
Yep.
And you can also find my writing on the Heritage Foundation.
Yep.
But I tend to I try to stay out of trouble on social media, on X, right?
I got your back, man.
And I do it because I represent the family,
Yeah.
both the family of God and my own family, and I want to be a good representation. But
Yes, sir.
that's the way they can find
Good
me.
deal, man. Man, you are one of the men that give us all hope,
Thank you.
for the future, man. It's an honor to walk with you.
Yes, sir.
Grateful for you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate
Bless
you,
man.
man.
All my love to your family as well.
Will do.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, folks.